Well, John Borghetti, apparently Qantas has been actively campaigning in the background against the tie-up between Etihad and Virgin. There was a leaked paper that said there were dire consequences for their business. So, but they should be worried, shouldn't they? I mean, you know, you are coming after them, and now with Etihad potentially owning 10%, it's going to make you stronger.
Well, I think there's two separate issues there. One is a small ownership of Virgin Australia by Etihad, and the second is the impact that we're having and bringing competition into the market, which has traditionally been a stronghold for Qantas. Now, they're two totally separate things. But if you look at the Etihad ownership in particular, I think I read in a paper this morning that James made it very clear he has no intention of taking it over. And indeed, there are much bigger shareholders than James, even if he reaches the 10%, which of course he will over time. We've got Richard Branson at 26, we've got Air New Zealand at 19, so it really is a small stake, and I think...
James Hogan, who you're referring to as the CEO of Etihad, he said that Qantas was being un-Australian, xenophobic. What do you think of that? Do you agree with him?
You'll have to ask him and get his views on it. But,
no, but what do you think of Qantas's attitude?
I think what I would say, though, is there's a lot of misinformation and a lot of jumping at shadows in the market, and I think people should take a cold shower.
How will the alliance between you work? I mean, how will you make more money and do better by having them as a shareholder?
Look, the alliance won't work any different to how it's worked for the last 12 to 18 months. It's been very good for both of us. We provide feed for them on their Europe services. They provide feed for us on our domestic services. We code share between here and the Middle East and beyond, of course. And it's been very good for both of us. So, you know, I think the equity investment doesn't really impact the alliance that we have because it's such a strong alliance, and it's been working very well for both of us.
How many points of market share do you think they're responsible for in your domestic business?
Well, I certainly wouldn't disclose that, but what I would say is that in terms of on-carriage onto our domestic business, since we formed this alliance of, and it's not just Etihad, it's Singapore Airlines, it's Air New Zealand and it's Delta, the amount of money that we are getting on our domestic network has more than doubled. In fact, it's almost trebled. So it's been a very, very beneficial relationship, as have the other relationships that we have.
So are you ahead of where you thought you'd be, you wanted to be?
Yes.
How far ahead?
Reasonably far ahead. We set ourselves a target of achieving certain goals within 3 years. We've just entered the third year, and we've almost achieved all of them. So I'm pretty pleased with the progress. But, you know, the issue with this is that you don't sit on your laurels. You have to keep going. And we have to remember that the 3-year Game Change program was really part of a 5-year program. And we'll talk more about that at our results.
In the year to May, Virgin carried more passengers than Qantas mainline. Was that one of your ambitions?
No.
Over 3 years?
I've said consistently, you know, since I walked into the job, we have no capacity share target or market share target other than, you know, attracting a certain amount of business traffic onto our airplanes. I think generally speaking what I'd say is that capacity should be the result of strategy, should not be the strategy. And certainly you'll never hear us talk about a line in the sand or a specific capacity share because frankly I think that's irrelevant.
Well, Qantas has talked about a line in the sand. Its line in the sand is 65%. Now, in the year to May, their percentage was 65.9. Mm. So, which month during the next year do you think you'll get them below 65?
Well, we're not targeting to get them below 65. And again, there's a lot of
no, but do you think you will get them? I mean, leaving aside whether it's targeted.
Let me give you our view on what's going to happen in the next 12 months. But to understand that, you have to look at our history and you have to say to yourself, what were the market share levels or capacity share levels that Virgin Blue, as it was before we changed the name, and now have had over the last 3 or 4 years, 5 years even. And what you'll find is that it fluctuates anywhere between, say, 28% to 31%. And it does so for very good reasons. You know, for example, last year we pulled a lot of capacity because of the terrible floods in Queensland and all the natural disasters that happened. And if you look at where we're going in the next 12 months, what you'll find is that our capacity plan, which may I add was outlined not only at the half-year results, but at the end-of-year results last year and hasn't altered, will see us still sitting at around 30 to 31%. So there's no massive capacity share grab here.
Well, that's interesting because, no, well, my calculation, maybe I'm wrong, but for the year to May, your share was 34.1%, which is more than
Well,
31.
it depends how you measure it. I mean,
That's
if you're measuring
including QantasLink and Jetstar and Qantas all as one.
well, and that's right. And what we're comparing though is total market capacity, and you have to take into account Tiger. I mean, don't forget Tiger are coming back into the market and adding capacity as they, always said they were going to do. So that's not an issue. So you have to look at the total market, and if you look at the total market, we're sitting at about 30 to 31.
Did you get share off Qantas when they shut down last year? And more importantly, did you hang on to it?
Well, it's a good question. Our planes were pretty full when they shut down. And although we did all we could to fly aircraft harder for a few days, and in fact talk to a lot of our alliance partners about seeing whether we could get capacity to help should the grounding last, we really didn't have that big an impact during those days. But what we did find is that a lot of the people that previously would not have travelled on us because of our initiatives, because of the status match initiative and so on, did start shifting. And did we retain all of them? No, we didn't. But I can tell you we retained a fair amount of them.
You wouldn't have been able to believe your luck when they did that.
Oh, look, I don't know about that. I don't think you want to see that happen to anybody, whether it's Qantas or anyone else. Unfortunately, that's a dynamic of the industry that sometimes happens. But no, we didn't see it as
You mentioned business class. Business class fares are down 20%, so there's clearly a price war going on. What are you targeting there? Is it share or profitability or what?
Well, price war is certainly a good way of putting it in business class, and so there should be. Because let's not forget that for more than 10 years, whilst economy fares and promotional fares at the leisure end have dropped significantly, in fact on some routes it's halved, because of the competition at the low end, there was no competition at the top end since Ansett stopped flying. So we deliberately entered that market, and we know that the fares were very high, and we could bring competition at lower fares with better service. And that's exactly what we've done, and I think you'll find that the fares have dropped more than 20%.
More than how much have they dropped?
Well, the last statistics I saw were around 25.
And is there more to go?
No, we're comfortable with that level, but we'll be competitive, and if the fares drop further, we'll be competitive.
And is it still profitable business at 25% lower fares?
Well, I think you've got to look at the profitability of the business as a whole, and people forget that there is the halo effect of the product and the brand that brings profitability as well. But I'm not going to talk about profitability with our results coming up in 2 or 3 weeks, so you'll have to wait for that.
One of the things Qantas has is the Chairman's Lounge, where everybody, like all the top people, the politicians and stuff.
Very familiar with it.
It was your baby at Qantas when you were there. But so are you going to do that at Virgin?
Alan, if we were, I wouldn't be saying it on TV.
Oh, come on, John.
I wouldn't comment on it.
Thanks for joining us, John Borghetti.
Great to see you, Alan. Thank you very much.